you're kind of a TV and movie buff. Do you remember the Cobra Kai motto?
Oh, yeah. Strike fast, strike hard, and no mercy.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of the new Viper from 908.
Right. Instead of roundhouse kicking kids in the face, they do it with ramen and FTIR.
So they take those two things together and they call it smart spectral processing. It basically it sweeps the leg and reads the compound.
Doesn't even wear a gi.
Nope. It doesn't even beat up teenagers, but you know what? It is pretty badass. It's kind of like having Mr. Miyagi right in your corner.
Right. Check out the champ at 908devices.com and have no mercy on your mystery chemicals. And in 2024, there was 138 hazmat responders in the U.S. that were injured, and that's 138 too much. Your team's mission is very clear. Do your job, do it well, and get everybody home safe.
But in order to do that, you really do need training that's going to work in the real world, not just theory.
Right. Work with us, the Hazmat guys, and we are the top-rated hazmat trainer by JM Powers for 23, 24, and 25. What we bring is thousands of field hours, cutting-edge equipment, and fully customized programs built around your team and your location.
It's an easy three-step path towards a zero-injury hazmat operation. So you're going to schedule your call. We talk together and tailor your plan for your needs. Then we execute the best in-class drills on your turf.
Yep. So the slots for Q4 are limited. So secure your team's spot today.
Hey, everybody. What are you doing? If you listen to our show, how could you not be listening to Hazard Class with Jake? He gives some phenomenal in-depth interviews in both the hazmat as well as the emergency services. And I'm going to say the fringes of emergency services, but I'll be honest with you, some of his guests are so not part of what we do, but they're so cool and interesting anyway. I absolutely give it a shot. And as long as you're looking for new podcasts, go with the Industrial Strength Hazmat Show. It's a whole podcast just like this, but it's focused on the industry side, which if you're in a city that has industry, you absolutely want to be listening to this so you can get and understand their lingo, their procedures, their response, because believe it or not, and I didn't understand this, it is vastly different than ours. If you're going to be collaborating, you want to be on the same page.
Yeah, and the newsletter podcast, that's another one that's a quick tidbit based on operations level, actually just news. It doesn't even matter if you're a tech ops chief, whatever. But you can also come in if you're a premium subscriber. You can go to the happy hour, which is the fourth Thursday of every month.
Yes,
1 hour chats.
I bring tons of beer to the happy hour, and people can drink as much as they want.
Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. And if you come, you're entered into the Southernmost Hazmat Conference Scholarship, February 3 through 5, 2026 in beautiful downtown Key West. And grants are dropping, I think, any day now. The bombs are dropping.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Everything's 2 weeks.
Everything is 2 weeks.
And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody over at Hot Zone. That's going to be October 16th, I think. And the NASPO conference, which is in Arkansas.
Yes.
It's going to be good.
And I will be actually attending a conference, not partaking in the conference, down in D.C. in October 15th. So if anyone's going to be going to the lithium-ion battery conference in D.C., hit me up. I will pretend to be busy so I can ignore you.
Yes. So speaking of being busy, let's talk about the next DOT class.
Yeah, so we're jumping into Class 7. Now, I'm going to say this with Class 7s. We have done plenty of podcasts on radiation and things like that. So this is not necessarily about the radiation. It's about how to really operate around the radiation, like how the flow of the run should be and your thought process. If you want more on the specifics of radiation, we have other shows. If you can't find the other shows, call us up. We'll come do radiation training for you. But one of the first things that we always like to do when we talk about DOT, any of the classes, is the recognition, right? Because we arrive on scene, we want to recognize. So we want to look for the placards, especially the radioactive placards. We want to look for white labels 1, yellow labels 2, yellow label 3, anything that says physical. LSA, or low specific activity markings. These are usually going to be, especially the higher end ones, they're going to be in a special type of packaging, either a type A or a type B. And the industrial packaging signal transportation index for different nucleotides.
Now, you could have shipping papers with UN numbers, and surprisingly, this is not obviously the comprehensive list, but 2910, 2911, 2912, 13, 15, 16, that goes all the way up. You have possibly radionuclide names like cesium-137, cobalt-60, iridium-192, or even that, why is it out of my head? Technium-99.
Technium.
That is, that's
the medical heart bad boy. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Now,
a very painful one.
Another thing people don't think about is what equipment is already chilling when you arrive on scene. If you come on scene and there is radiological metering surveys, lead pigs, radiograph cameras, that could be a little bit of a hint that you're dealing with radiation.
Right. So let's just take the snapshot, pull back a little bit. When we have a radioactive transport, right? Because that's what the DOT placard's for. We're transporting it from point A to point B. The highest potential is probably going to be from like the gamma, right? Which will reach out and get you from a long way away, or that high energy beta, right? Am I really worried about alpha? No, because I got to be like sitting on it, like on top of it, because it only goes, 3 inches or something like that ish?
3 inches, yeah. It's what do we call that? The Irish length? It goes to your typical Irish length.
Right. So you could have internal contamination from like loose particulates, but luckily we are armed with SCBAs, and that's one of your first things to do.
Now, one of the things people think about when they think about transportation incidents is they think like the atomic bomb, the explosion, right? And that would be reaching a criticality. And those are super, super rare. So don't arrive on scene thinking, oh my God, this thing is going to detonate. The chances of that are almost slim to none. They're not going to transport that much fissile material. However, just kind of think of what has been involved in this transportation incident, where if you do have impacts or fires, that could potentially weaken the shielding structure and increase the fielding dose, or the dose field.
You could imagine in your hometown, you have a radiation, transportation accident. The town is going to panic, right? They're going to be self-evacuating, I'll say nicely, running from the hills.
Just talking about this.
Yeah, but there's going to be media there and long operational periods, because until everything's swept up, because of the public perspective of a radioactive incident is going to be a thing.
Now, with radiation, and this is going to be particularly important with radiation, establishing initial control is really important. We want to use those Alera principles: the time, the distance, the shielding, parking uphill, upwind. We want to maximize standoff distance. Really super important. Even more important, I think, than chemical is that we want to avoid driving through visible debris.
Yeah, start with a large conservative control zone, and then you bring your deep metering data and you tighten that up. And so with that limits the amount of people that you get in there, and you're going to try to promote a single point of entry, specifically because tracking this stuff in and out is going to be a problem.
Now, remember, radiation can be found in the solid state, the liquid state, and the gaseous state, which a lot of people don't really think of the gaseous state for it. So when we look at the GEMBO model, which is your General Hazardous Materials Behavior Modeling Guide, we're going to kind of walk through that, because it's a really good way of step-by-stepping addressing the potential that's in front of you. So one of the first things we want to look at is the stress. What is the mechanical impact, crush, heat, immersion? Was there a corrosive attack? Was there something that has a potential to be stressing the container, or what is housing the source?
Right. And we could have water immersion or fire that could possibly degrade the seals or the shielding in some way.
Right. So when we look at these possible containers, right, the stress, we want to think about how the radiation is coming out. Now, when we often think about this, when we talk about this in class, because this is important for your response. It's important for your metering. It's important to be able to close your eyes and visualize what's happening. If you took a light bulb and you put it inside a cardboard box, sealed it up on all 6 sides, put it in a dusty room. You know, sometimes you dust a room and you get all the little sprinkled particles that are going everywhere, and you could see the rays of sunlight coming in through the window. If you put it in a room like that and you poke holes in the box, how would that visible light shine out? What would it look like inside the room? You would see the rays, you'd see the cone shape. If you can envision a light bulb in a box, how that light is reacting is exactly how that radiation is going to be emanating from the inside of whatever the box or the container is. So you can kind of think about that as you're looking to meter to check to make sure you've covered all the sides.
Now, we can also have a breach, right? Which is, we could talk about package breaching, which could be like deformation, punctures, lid compromises, the way the lid just like pops off. That could reduce the shielding and give you contamination.
Now, the release also may come from a seal that has been busted, loose, broken. Loose contamination of solids, liquids can all be part of contamination. So don't arrive on scene and see a liquid and think, oh, that's fine. There's no liquid radioactive materials. No, there very much is.
Yeah. Now, another one we can have is a release, right? Which is what it actually means. What we often get these two concepts confused because we're teaching this and you're responding to this. When you're responding, make sure you're identifying different source of the radiation and the actual radiation itself. Hey, Mike, take a look around and tell me how many lithium-ion batteries you have around you right now.
I'd say about 7.
See, batteries are everywhere, and every department in the nation is starting to deal with these things on a regular basis.
Which is why we're excited to tell you about a new product that's proven to limit and control battery fire propagation. It's from a brand called DeGeo, and I got to tell you, they are chock full of hazmat experts who know that there's absolutely a better way for us, the first responders, to handle, store, and ship these at-risk lithium-ion batteries.
Yep, this product will solve your lithium-ion battery problems. It's lightweight, it works across all battery types, and we can say it lives up to the hype because we've tested it firsthand.
It's called ObexionFR, and it's part of a 2-part system with a scientifically designed granular along with a UN-certified paler drum. More importantly, Obexion is proven to reduce the toxic IDLH gases that are emitted when one of these batteries kicks off. So when all's said and done, it's going to help keep your team safe.
Right, so go to thehazmatguys.dgeo.com. That's thehazmatguys.dgeo.com to learn more.
And we promised we would be looking into batteries or solutions for battery fires, and many companies have presented their product to us, but there's one noteworthy one that is stood out from the rest because it really does extinguish lithium-ion battery fires. Not just lithium-ion battery fires, but actually multiple classes of fires. It prevents the spread of fire, and it prevents the lithium-ion battery from reigniting.
So before that guy gets on his keyboard and starts cap lock asking for proof, the links are in the show notes for the UL Class A and B, and also for BSI for 10 categories, including the lithium-ion batteries.
Like every product that comes across our desk, we put it through our own kind of field tests, and I got to tell you, we're really impressed with the results. But we suggest that you do your own myth busting. What's really cool about this product is it comes in a variety of options, so it can integrate into whatever your current process is. Check them out at Fire Suppression Solutions or click on the link in the show notes.
Another thing we could do is venting of the gaseous forms or, during a fire that could actually fill the area of the affected area. So another consideration.
So when we look at the Gembo model, we also look at the dispersion and the engulfment. Basically, how are these particulates going to act once they're around? So airborne particles spreading via the wind or some kind of ventilation within a inside of a building. What does the water look like? How is that water going to carry runoff and contaminants through the soil, through the ground?
Yeah, and one of the other ones is going to be we spoke about this before, is a single source of entry and exit, because you're going to have foot traffic, vehicle tires, that can all pull dirty into the clean.
And then we think about the exposure, right? As far as we're concerned, our external dose from gamma, or even possibly high energy beta, is really the main concern externally.
And we can have this internal dose, whereas if you inhale it or ingest it, it's on your hands and you're eating a ham sandwich, or get contamination into wounds, that's another concern.
And it's going to harm you in both ways, right? So from an external point of view, we're concerned about receiving that exposure of a high dose. This is especially true if we have an unshielded source.
Right. So we try to stick with that a whole LAR, as low as reasonably acceptable. That is the core tenet of not just everybody uses it for radiation, but I think it's a good thing for all of hazmat. You're always trying to do the least bad. It's like what is that?
I try to do the least in general, so I totally understand.
Now let's talk about the identity, right? So we can have some sealed sources like LSA, SCO, and exempt quantities that carry different risks for different contamination and doses. Let's go into each one.
Yeah, so an LSA is a low specific activity material. This is a radioactivant that has relatively low concentrations of radioactivity per unit mass. It's typically included in things like contaminated soil, ores, activated metals that are radioactive, but not really very intense. The hazard is usually contamination, other than is it contamination internal versus this high external dose rates. LSA shipments are more on the volume mass limits than really heavy duty shielding.
Now, SCO, which is surface contaminated object, is referring to solid objects that are not themselves radioactive, but have radioactive contamination fixed at a surface or loosely attached. When I think of this, I think of like the radio or the halogen or the gun that was brought into the hot zone and now has this dust or whatever the hell's on it. And so you can have pipes, you can have whatever. Packaging and transporting requirements depend on how much contamination is on the surface. And I would also say is the geometry of it. I mean, if you got to package up something that's just obtuse, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard to package that. Obtuse.
Yeah. Just slightly larger than like a 55-gallon drum or a bump that sticks out. Yeah. What a pain in the ass. One of the things that we want to consider all of the time while we're on any radiation run, especially transportation, is that dose rate and contamination potential. So luckily, unlike chemical, we are able to monitor and meter for all types of radioactive materials. So we're going to use our survey meters for our dose rate. We're going to use our contamination meters, or we're going to swipe surfaces to check for contamination anytime it's safe, or anytime we think maybe there's been cross-contamination.
And utilize the inverse square rule, right, to estimate the dose fields and set boundaries. We're going to use our meters to confirm those initial boundaries and adjust as appropriately.
So we always want to operate inside a hot zone with a PRD. Every single person walking in should have a personal radiological dosimeter, meaning it's kind of giving you exactly what your thing is. And the key to them is going to be resetting your PRD to 0 before you enter the hot zone for the first time. And if your PRD is contaminated and it needs to stay behind, then you need to make sure you get that total dose before you kind of leave it behind.
Now, obviously, life safety in special populations such as, accidental versus intentional. Like if you work at a radiation place, you're not going to have special populations there, I don't think. But, we're going to try to prioritize rescue when survivable. And there are times when they have met or exceeded the fatal dose. And so you're going to have to balance your push on that. So you're going to, the nearer the source, rapid removal techniques, grab and go and get out, time, dose, and shielding.
Yeah. So we also, for things that are air release, we want to consider bystanders, sensitive facilities like hospitals, schools, transportation hubs as things that we want to protect initially and as quickly as possible.
Now, let's talk about some life safety stuff. If we have in the overarching, strategy and tactics, I guess, getting them out, hasty drags, minimal time in the source.
We want to control the public access. This, I'm telling you, we coming from New York City, we could never control public access. These guys would move right under and we would walk through, and it really didn't matter. This is a scenario where it matters. And you want to put a tremendous amount of manpower and effort into physical and obvious barriers.
We want to limit the hazards. Obviously, this is kind of like the whole name of the game, but locate the source, reshield if using practical shielding like high hydrogen sources like water, distance, anything.
And we want to prevent contamination spread by controlling how much water is being used, where's it going, where's the foot traffic coming through. Isolation in this particular scenario is of the utmost importance, as well as decon. Two things that we generally don't put a lot of focus on with other events. It becomes a high priority.
Now, obviously, we're going to zone out things like we do and everything. Hot zones where we're going to be doing our work, and you're going to be monitoring and metering and packaging. Warm zones for decon, cold zone for command and support.
And you want to make sure that these zones are flexible. For the most part here in the United States, we use 2 millirems as our hot zone standard. But based on those ALERA principles, it is entirely possible that you can go up to 10 millirem per hour, depending on the size of the incident.
Monitoring. We're going to be using our regular dose, our instruments, gamma dose rate meters, Geiger-Muller tubes for beta and gamma, contamination probes like the pancake, as you need.
There are a lot of great systems out there to help you with this, right? But you want to make sure that you're logging systems for reading, timestamping, and locations. Is it super important to us as first responders? No, not really. But the secondary responders that are coming in, this becomes huge.
And as far as PPE, it's kind of simple. And I'll put PPE and respiratory together. You want to limit your exposure with contamination. Structural PPE with dosimetry may be adequate, plus a strict control time because it's going to hold.
Now, if you have loose contamination, that bunker gear kind of goes out of the question, or you just have to acknowledge the fact that gear is done with, right? Like you're sacrificing the gear, which might be a possibility.
The hazmat guys, quite frankly, they have the best training out there. Everybody says so. Tremendous courses, fantastic trainers. Let's make hazmat training great again.